Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela Wolf, Bestie Life, the podcast, and I'm here today with Crystal Steers. She is an amazing woman. She hosts a podcast called Chasing Happiness, helping everyone find their story and their journey into happiness. Crystal, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I want you to share with everyone kind of who you are, your story. Like I said, I loved how we connected because we had so many things in common, and, you know, how you help impact others.
Yeah. So, we've chatted a few times, but the short version of my story is I went to undergrad to get a degree in psych and found out in my third year of my fourth year program that I couldn't do what I wanted to with my career based on the rules and the laws here in Canada. And it sort of burst my bubble temporarily, and I wasn't sure what to do with my life. So I created just, my own little small business to try and fill my time and figure out what to do. And I woke up one morning completely unhappy and didn't want to get out of bed. And I thought, this can't really be what life is. This cannot be how it's meant to be. And I sold my business and mostly everything I owned. And I moved across the country because I knew I needed a change, but I didn't know what that change was. And I didn't know how to find it. And I thought, you know what? This opportunity came up. I'm just going to say yes. We will see what happens. And if worse comes to worse and I don't like it, then that's fine. I can go back. And so I made a really big life change. And, I disconnected all of my social media and I created a blog. And basically out of that was born Chasing Happiness, which is the business that I now run. I do one-to-one coaching with people. I have the podcast. We have a book club. We have all kinds of stuff. And really the goal is to just help people find whatever their version of happiness is in their life. Because I think for a lot of people, we're told happiness is buying a house, it's having kids, it's creating this life, but that's not necessarily meaningful for everyone. And everyone needs to figure out what it is for them individually. And it looks really different for all of us, depending on where we live and what our life circumstances are. So the goal of the business really is to help inspire people to ask those questions. Like, what are you doing today that's bringing you joy? What are you doing today that will bring you joy tomorrow? How do you set up your life in a way that's meaningful to you personally, not the people around you, not the people who tell you what it should be, but to you personally? And, for me, that was something nobody ever asked me. I had to sort of figure that out by myself in my early 30s. And, I'm still figuring it out now in my 40s because it's constantly changing and evolving the same way we all are constantly changing and evolving.
Yeah. And I love how you talk about there isn't just one way, and it's all these things. There's actually a book I had read. It's called Joyful by Ingrid Fattel Lee. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's your book club list. And she talks about, we look at happiness as this big thing, but it really is those moments of joy throughout our day. And it might be something small like seeing a balloon floating up in the sky. It could be the colors that are around you. It's different smells, very kind of tangible things sometimes that can bring you joy. And to catch those moments is how we can find happiness. And so, like you said, one thing that worked for you, it's a great kind of thing to build on.
Absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of times, especially since I started this blog, because I didn't intend to start out a business. I really just wanted to create a blog so that, because I had shut off all my social media, so that people knew I wasn't, dead somewhere, essentially. And people would contact me through the blog and be like, I don't know how you moved your whole life across the country to someplace you've never been before. Like, what was that like? How did you do it? And so the business sort of evolved out of that. And a lot of it was really just giving people the excuse to ask themselves, what are you doing in this moment that you really find joy in, but you never notice that you find joy in? So for me, when I first wake up in the morning, the first thing I want is a sip of coffee. And it's not that I'm craving coffee. It's not that I'm addicted to coffee, but that first sip that I take in the morning is a joyful experience for me. The flavor, the taste, the warmth, there's something about it that allows me to stop and remember this is part of my joyful life, being able to make myself that cup of coffee in the morning and savor it out on my balcony, looking at my view, whatever that happens to be. So it's really, for me, it's an accumulation of all of those little small moments throughout my days, as well as the big things like moving somewhere or traveling somewhere.
Right. But again, it's those sensory experiences that create that mindfulness around your coffee. You guys can't see Crystal, but it's like you can see the joy that she gets from the taste, the smell, the feel of the warm mug. Like I love how that connects.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I have learned about myself is the cup itself matters, right? So I have very specific and strategic cups depending on the kind of day that I'm having. Some of them are Disney mugs because I'm a huge Disney fan. Some of them are, phrases or affirmations that I've come across that are really meaningful to me. And so I take a minute before I pick my mug every morning to think about how do I want to feel in this moment. I have a really fancy, like English old tea style kind of cup as well. And it's very tiny, so it doesn't hold a lot of coffee. But on the days when I want to feel super fancy, that's the one that I choose. And it's those sort of mindful moments that really matter, because I think a lot of the time we operate on autopilot because we have so many things to do and so much to accomplish and so many stressors in our day-to-day life that we often overlook those little things. Like taking a minute, if you have kids, before the kids wake up, if you can, to just, take a deep breath. You may not be able to meditate for a half an hour before they wake up, but if you can sit down and just like make yourself a cup of coffee, like that's a joyful experience, or it can be if you let it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I love, because that is one of the big things I love, is the fact that it is the little things that add up. It's the little habits, the little shifts. It's stacked throughout your day that's going to create that self-care, that happiness. And so I love how you give such a tangible example of those things and what it looks like, because that's where I think people are hard. They make it hard to be like, well, how does that look for me? And so when we share how it looks for everybody else is how we can start to see how that can fit into our life and our day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and keep in mind, it may not necessarily work for you. I don't have kids, right? So I don't have to worry in the morning that a 2-year-old's going to come and interrupt my cup of coffee. So maybe that's the circumstance you're in. So maybe for you, it's something different, but it's a matter of trying all the things and seeing what works and figuring it out for yourself. And there are days when the cup of coffee isn't the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. It's going to the gym or whatever the, travel plans are that I have. It's different all the time. And I think we need to remember, because we're constantly different, because we're always changing, those things can change as well. But remembering that even in the struggle, there is probably moments, even if they're just small moments, that we can take that second. We can reframe what's going on. You posted a wonderful little reel that I just saw about the snow that you've received. Lots of people could look out their window at 20 inches of snow and go, today is going to be a horrible day. Or you could put on a snowsuit and go build a snowman or make a snow angel, right? Like a lot of it is just that mindset and allowing ourselves a minute to just take a breath and slow down.
To find our playful side again and tap into that. Because I think as we get older, we lose a little bit of that. We take on so many things. We have to always be serious. It's okay to just have fun and toss a little snowball at the window, not a hard one, or your kid or your spouse or whatever.
Well, and that's one of the things that I'm constantly talking to my clients about is like, they will come to me and they will say, I don't know what makes me happy. As adults, we get into this lifestyle because we have to work and we have to pay for things and life gets complicated. We forget the things that used to bring us joy. And I'm constantly saying, what was the thing you did when you were 5, 6, 7, 10 that made you happy? Maybe it's not going to be the same thing now, but go back and try it. See if sketching, artwork, creating something with your hands, whatever it happens to be. Maybe for you, you used to love to play soccer, but you haven't done it since you were in high school, right? Like there are all of these experiences that we had when we were younger that we lose as we become adults that really need to come back into our lives so that we have moments of not just joy and playfulness, but those moments where we're invested investing into our souls as well.
Yeah. And reconnecting with ourselves too. We
Yes.
forget who that person is sometimes. So I love that it's not just picking things, but really going back to when we were our most uninhibited, when we were our
Yes.
most selves as kids, where we just did things because they were fun, and reconnecting there.
Well, and that because it was fun thing, I think as adults, we get to this place where it's like, we have to have a reason for everything, right? The reason has to be justifiable. It has to make sense. It has to be financial, whatever it
Just to
happens
look
to be.
productive.
Right, exactly. But when was the last time you just did something because you felt like doing it for the fun of it, right? Do it for the fun of it. Even if you seem silly in your own mind as you're doing it, do it anyway. Like embrace that aspect of it. Love that aspect of it because I think 100%, if we had way more of that in our lives, we would be able to navigate some of this harder stuff a lot easier because we know those parts of ourselves are still there even with the stress and the chaos and everything
Yeah.
else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit, Crystal, what would people think you have together, but you don't always feel like you do? 'Cause I
Oh,
think
that's a
sometimes when it
great
comes to
question.
happiness, we're looking for a certain level, but it's like, that doesn't mean everything's all together and perfect.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting that you ask this because I was just writing a blog over the weekend that I haven't posted yet. And it's sort of about me not necessarily always being a kind person. So, a lot of what happens for me is I will post things on social media about what's going on in my life. And every once in a while, I get a reminder to post, things are not perfect because someone will reach out to me and say, well, you have this life because you can do this and I can't. And
Right.
I will have the prompt of, you know what? I am not always a nice person. I am not always kind, just like everybody else. I have moments where I have a breaking point, all of those things. And so a lot of people think I am one way because they only see this social media side or they only see me working with clients. And, you're a different person when you're working with a client, not in the sense that you're a totally different person, but how you approach them may be different than how you approach your spouse or your sibling in that moment. Right. So I think
You bring different expectations sometimes when it's personal.
yes, exactly. And I think people assume I have life together because I've figured a bunch of things out, but
Mhm.
I'm just as much of a mess as everyone else. I struggle just as much as everyone else with managing my emotions sometimes, with keeping to a schedule sometimes. I'm a very creative person. So when I have meetings booked, but I feel like being creative, it's a struggle for me to show up 100% in that moment the way that I should be because my mind ends up elsewhere. I think a lot of times we feel as human beings, we have to be a certain way because of those expectations that you mentioned. And sometimes you just can't be. Sometimes we just are complicated people who have 16 different things going on in our brain at once. And I never have it all together. Even if I look like I have it all together, sometimes I don't. And I think that's okay. I think reminding ourselves that it's okay not to have it all together, that sometimes we are a mess. Sometimes there's clothes on the floor. Sometimes the laundry's not done or the dishes aren't in the dishwasher. And that's okay. It doesn't make us failures as human beings. It just makes us human beings. And that's the point. So I try really hard to not just remind myself that that's okay, but remind other people that it is as well, because we are all just trying to show up the best we can in any given moment. And that's going to be different at every moment. Sometimes I'm only going to be able to show up with 75% of myself. Sometimes it's going to be 100%. Maybe some days it's only 25%, right? Like it depends on where we are. And I think all of it is okay. But yeah, I definitely don't always have it together. And a lot of times people think I do.
No, thank you for sharing that, Crystal, because that's the thing. I think we need to kind of break some of those limiting beliefs by sharing that vulnerability, because I think that's where so many people put those expectations on themselves because they think, well, everybody else has this, everybody else has that. So I love that we can just get real here, bust that myth right open.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of times there is this real myth of people who have it together together, they never fail at anything. They never have those stumbling moments. And that's so not true. I'm constantly failing. The thing that I think has changed for me in the last 10 years is when I fail, I no longer look at myself, regardless of whether it's business, personal, whatever it happens to be. I don't look at myself as a failure. I look at it as my first attempt in learning something. I've learned something by that failure, whether it's I need to be a little kinder, whether it's I need to show up a little different, whether it's I need to, be better at scheduling, whatever the circumstances are, right? It's my first attempt at learning. And sometimes I need 900 attempts at learning, and sometimes I only need one or two, but it doesn't make me a failure as a person. And I think that shift in mindset has been one of the biggest things for me because especially when I was younger, I constantly thought I was failing as a human being because I didn't have it all together. And it seemed like everyone around me did have it all together, right? Like, especially before social media, people only showed you in the real world what they wanted you to see. You never got a peek behind the curtain because social media didn't exist. And unless you were really in someone's life, you didn't know what was going on in their life, right? Yeah. So I think in a lot of ways, this is the most important thing, is just knowing, we're all a mess sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah. We have a family rule when it comes to new recipes. You get 3 tries to get it right.
Oh,
because
I love that.
I think sometimes it's like we look on Pinterest or we see different things and we think, okay, it looks so simple. And it's not. I came from my first time trying to make gnocchi, and it dissolved into like this disgusting potato soup that was
my gosh,
completely inedible. But I do have to say, by the 3rd time, I did learn and get it together.
Oh, yay!
And that's the thing. I think if we all give ourselves the grace on whatever it is we're doing, to be like, you know what, I'm going to suck at it the first time and go in thinking that then you will get stronger and better every time.
Absolutely. Well, and reminding ourselves, like, we don't learn anything in life and master it the first time we do it. Like, we did not learn to walk because we, as babies, instantly thought, okay, I'm going to stand up and put 2 feet in front of the other, right? Like, there was a lot of crawling and stumbling and falling and all of those other things. So why would we not give ourselves that kind of grace in everything else in life? Like, the first time you drive a car, you don't know how to drive a car, right? But eventually we get there, and it's practice and it's that repetition. And I think that grace is so important in all of the areas of our lives, because if we've never done it before, how can we expect that we know how to do it, right?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the questions I always ask my guests is, what are 3 things that you're most grateful for? I think gratitude is a huge part of our self-care, and to be able to see the good in ourselves and in every day help overshadow those negative parts.
Yeah, gratitude is huge. I actually have a gratitude journal. So I force myself some days to sit down and actually, before I go to bed at night, write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. And I say force myself because there are some days that are a real struggle. And I write down things as simple as, I had a cup of coffee today and I'm grateful for that. It didn't snow today and I'm grateful for that. Sometimes it's really small things, or it's things that we take for granted. Like, I'm grateful that I had a roof over my head today because I can't think of anything else. Other days, I could probably come up with 20 or 30 things because I am creating the life that I want. And so there is always a lot for me to be grateful for when I actually get really honest with myself and think about it. I'm grateful that I have a podcast and I get to meet people like you and chat with people like you who I otherwise probably would never meet from around the world, right? I'm grateful that people want the information that I have in my head. People reach out to me all the time on social media, via my website, the podcast, whatever, and just say, thank you. You asked this question that got me thinking, or I'm grateful that things that I do have value in this world. I never once, when I started my podcast 6 years ago, thought anyone would listen to it. In fact, if you go and you listen to my very first episode, I say, I'm not even sure I'm going to post this because I can't imagine anyone's going to want to hear it. But ultimately, that whole process has changed my life in so many ways. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the person who suggested I do it. I'm grateful to communities like the Facebook group where you and I got connected, because I otherwise wouldn't necessarily connect with people. I'm grateful for social media because in times like these struggling times that we have right now, I can check in on people who I might not otherwise be able to check in on. Today, I'm simply grateful that I have a warm house because we're under threat of losing power for a couple of days based on the storm that's coming. So I think there are a lot of things I could be grateful for. The biggest one I would have to say is my ability to know that whatever is coming my way, I'm going to figure it out. I struggled for a long time to figure that out and to know that things would be okay because I could do whatever the hard thing was that was in front of me. I wasn't always sure that I could. And so I struggled for a lot of years. Like, how am I supposed to navigate this? This doesn't make any sense. Where's my owner's manual, right?
Yeah.
Like, where's that thing that tells me how to do this? And I've finally gotten to a place where it doesn't matter how hard it is. It doesn't matter how complicated it is. Yes, I'm probably still going to freak out a little bit. Yes, I'm probably still going to have an emotional breakdown at some point, but I know logically, whatever it is, I'll figure it out. It might take time. I might need help from other people, but eventually I'll get there because we as human beings can do really hard and complicated things. We just often forget that because in a lot of ways, the life that we're surrounded with now is really easy. We don't struggle to find a meal for the most part. We don't struggle to have a warm home for the most part. And so we take a lot of those things for granted. And I try really hard not to do that and be grateful for those things as often as I can.
Yeah, it's like the quote that says something like, you don't appreciate your health till you lose it.
Exactly.
To really appreciate the things when you have them rather than when they're gone, to take the time for the people that matter when they're here, not just for when they're gone, all of that. So thank you so much, Crystal. I love everything that you speak and stand for and help women with, or people with in general. And I can't sing your praises enough. And so definitely everyone, Crystal's connections and links and everything will be in the show notes. So I hope you listen to her podcast. We did a swap, which was awesome. So I'm so excited to just get to keep talking to Crystal in different ways. And so I hope you connect with her and support her, because I think by not only chasing happiness, but sharing our happiness is how we just spread it. So thank you, Crystal.
Thank you for having me. And, for all of your listeners, I think not just sharing it, but also experiencing it through other people so that we can try those things that we were talking about, right? That maybe we've never thought of, to experience life in a different, better, maybe just completely unheard of way that might work for us, I think is also part of the journey as well. So thank you so much for having me.
So much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.